This week on A Lively Experiment, the verdict is in on the future of the Washington Bridge. And Governor McKee is asking for a big salary bump for many of his cabinet members.
A Lively Experiment is generously underwritten by...
Hi, I'm John Hazenwhite Jr. For over 30 years, A Lively Experiment has provided insight and analysis of the political issues that face Rhode Islanders. I'm a proud supporter of this great program and Rhode Island PBS.
Joining us on the panel, political strategist Rob Horowitz, Boston Globe reporter Dan McGowan, and Republican strategist Lisa Pelosi. Hello and welcome to this week's Lively. I'm Jim Hummel. The announcement Thursday afternoon was strangely anticlimactic and dramatic all at once. Governor McKee said the ailing westbound side of the Washington Bridge will need a total rebuild stretching well into 2026 with an estimated price tag of $250 to $300 million. He added that a day of reckoning would be coming soon for those responsible for the failure of the existing bridge. Dan, that sounds a little ominous. I was expecting to use maybe the wrath of Khan would be coming. That stood out to me. Everything else seemed anticlimactic.
Completely agree. The day of reckoning is the part that, who is going to be held accountable. Interestingly, he was very clear that he stands by and offered a vote of confidence in Director Alviti in the Department of Transportation. So what does that hint towards? I think it's sort of, in some ways, that Lincoln Chafee style 38 Studios lawsuit, right, is seemingly where we're going with this, where maybe you sue a bunch of the contractors for, faulty bridge repairs or not inspecting the bridge the right way. It seems like the governor wants to strike this balance of, number one, get it, hold somebody accountable, right? Doesn't matter who, hold somebody accountable. And then, you guys know the politics probably better than I do, but I think he's essentially saying, I'm going to make this a referendum. If I get the bridge done in 2 years, I deserve to be reelected. If not, well, we'll see where that goes.
It wasn't a surprise yesterday because of the plan a couple weeks ago being strategically leaked to the media. So it was kind of softening the earth, letting us be prepared that it was going to be a total rebuild or total replacement. But I was sitting there, I was listening to it on the radio and then later watching the news, hearing about accountability, and I kept looking at Peter Alviti thinking, where does the buck stop here? If it doesn't stop at the governor's desk, it should stop at the DOT directors, that he should be signing off on these, all the orders that went through and the pricing and whatever. So I was looking at Alviti thinking, your days are numbered.
Maybe, maybe not. We'll see.
I think Governor McKee, as more information comes out, you've got a federal investigation into fraud and a bunch of these other things that are going to occur besides whatever the state tries to claw back. I think the real day of reckoning is going to be for Governor McKee, and it's going to be in September, if I haven't my years right, 2026 in the Democratic primary. This isn't by itself. This means he's going to lose, but this is going to play out over all the course of that time, and I don't think anything that comes out is going to make him look good. So he's got to hope a bunch of other things happen that are good for the state, because this is, I think, no matter how well he does in terms of the rebuild here, what's happened and how long this is going to take is going to be a drag on his reelection.
What's really interesting about the September 2026, obviously Democratic primary.
Right.
The other thing about this is, right, he's saying that the idea right now is an early timeline would be March of 2026 to get it done. If this gets kicked past March into another summer, that would mean 3 consecutive summers of bridge traffic going to the Cape, coming back from the Cape. I think it's going to, if there's a third summer of this, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to be reelected.
But if they get it done early, not holding my breath, but if they get it done early, he takes credit for that.
Yeah, but we haven't talked yet about the cost, and right now they're estimating $250 to $300 million, which I thought was a little low when I heard the number.
It is low.
And then, we're kind of talking about, is it going to be the 80-20 match? 80% of the feds, but we don't know yet what the Federal Highway Administration is going to come back in their review. They might penalize us for how we misspent the money already. So I don't know if the 80-20 is automatic. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up for you, what I haven't heard the word is tolls. I was wondering if this could be a toll bridge to help pay for it. Right.
Yeah, and it's a really good question. I'm surprised it didn't come up at the press conference yesterday. Now, we should say, Governor, the Speaker, the Senate President have all said no chance of tolls on cars. But you're right. I mean, even if we do get an 80-20 match, 20% of $300 million is a lot of money, right? And $60 million, right? It's gonna be very difficult to pay for that.
But put it in context, we've got a $14 billion budget. I think the whole thing's probably a non-starter just because of the politics of it. But to Lisa's point, when you have both the Senate President and the House Speaker come out and say, hey, it's going to be more than this, which they did in real time yesterday, we kind of know we're probably going to be 350, 400 million, state share could be up to 70, 80 million. So it's going to be a big hit. And again, not trying to pile on the governor, but know how much credit he thinks he may get for how rebuilding it. It collapsed on his watch. It collapsed with his handpicked, it was going around.
Collapsed metaphorically.
Secretary.
Broke.
Collapsed a little strong.
Yeah.
Praise whoever, it didn't collapse, but this all happened on his watch.
You know, getting back to the day of reckoning, I wonder how it's going to fly with the public, because I was thinking McKee must know in his mind. He wouldn't have said it's coming very soon if they already haven't talked at length. Okay, we're going after him, and him. And you wonder, I did a piece years ago for the Hummel Report, who's inspecting the inspectors? Ultimately, if nobody in state government loses their job, God forbid, their pension, right, because of malfeasance, a lot of these guys who have been there forever just retire. So then if it gets into a legal battle, then it's expensive. How much have they spent defending the tolls already?
Right.
So with the average Rhode Islander, it's going to be, it was the contractors and the private people who are not going to willingly hand you a check. They're going to fight tooth and nail. So how does that play out?
Well, and think about it. People do not give Lincoln Chafee the credit for recovering millions of dollars in the 38 studios. Because no one was held accountable directly. Now, there are a handful of people. Keith Stokes at the time was the EDC director. He was pushed out. You think to Gina Raimondo over the UHIP crisis, Elizabeth Roberts was pushed out. Sometimes you need a sacrificial lamb, even if they don't deserve to be pushed out. This is where that conversation about Director Alviti has to come in. But I think the governor is in a tough spot. I think, one, he needs this bridge to get done. If Peter Alviti does have the support of the laborers and things like that, you want to get this project done. If you push him out, then suddenly you're in a situation where maybe people aren't going to go to bat for you.
And where does it fit in with Senate President Ruggiero? Because he's had Alviti's back for a long time.
He couldn't be more clear.
So does he step in and tell the governor, hey, don't touch him?
I would imagine yes.
Yeah. Now that the decision's been made, you wonder for the long term for economics. I've heard some people say, well, I need to switch doctors. Or somebody lives in Cranston and they're sending their kid to Bayview, somebody in Bristol sending their kid to Moses Brown, whether those decisions are going to start to be made and how that affects the economy around here.
I think if you look at sort of the tea leaves at a little bit of the early research, I think it'll have a marginal effect. Even Rhode Island's economy is big enough. And this is kind of a Rhode Island, in terms of the traffic impact, being somebody from the New Jersey, New York area, the 10, 15-minute delays, that this is probably going to cost, or 20-minute delays or half-hour delays, are very important to people's quality of life. But in New Jersey, New York, or even Boston traffic, you'd call that a rounding error in your commute. So it's very important, but it's been mishandled. And then the other thing is, some of the accountability is going to be Barletta, potentially all that. Those are all selected by this administration. So that's sort of the political dilemma he has on this. So he's got to do a great job on everything else, I think.
I was wondering if you would still be living in Barrington or choosing to live in Barrington if you knew this was coming on. If you
Team East Bay. That's a great question. I've said this many times. It's my wife who does 5 days a week. I have flexibility of schedule, but that's a great question for people who know that they have to go. Things have changed so much with the pandemic now, though. I mean, how many people are actually going, public safety, obviously, other sectors, but other jobs, how many people are going 5 days a week or could flex it?
Well, Jim, there's an extra room in my house.
I'd be happy
if you need it.
Well, you know what? I've told the governor, I have a room at my house that he could do the 5 day a week. He could get the East Bay experience. You remember last time we had you on? You were late.
I know.
And you live on the West Bay.
So I get impacted by it too. But there's still some other big landmines coming forward. We haven't had the lane shrink yet.
Right.
So we don't know what kind of havoc that's going to cause. And then then on top of it, I was thinking they're going to be demolishing the bridge while they're rebuilding it. Would you want to be on the other span of the bridge when they're demolishing the other side of it, you know?
Yeah, maybe not. I'll take up that offer. Do I have to babysit? Is that part of it?
I mean, that is part. That
I want to become the nanny, actually. Oh, that would be great. All right, to be continued. Oh, we're going to be talking about this a little bit between now and 2026. RIPA, always in turmoil. This panel we haven't had on since a lot of the discussions have been happening about a new bus hub. They're chronically underfunded. They're having to potentially cut some routes, although they've put that on a temporary hold. I don't know what to do about RIPA, and apparently they don't know what to do about it either at this point.
Yeah, it really requires state-level thinking on it, and this is where I think, not to pile on Mr. Alviti, who's being piled on this, but and it's not completely his fault, but this is where you need a broader plan that adequately funds public transit. Whatever lack of good management at RIPTA may be a minor part of this problem, but the bigger part of the problem is the state's refusal to really fund RIPTA. Now we're down 20% of people going on the buses. I like the idea of the new station. I think you need it. I understand people don't want to leave Kennedy Plaza, but you're never going to solve this problem unless you modernize RIPTA. But you need a whole approach. If we're going to hit our climate goals, you got to get cars off the road. And that requires the state and a $14 billion budget saying, hey, this is important to us. Let's figure out a sustainable funding source over time.
But I wonder if you made every bus, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you made every bus free and you had routes all over the place, would people still take it? It's the mindset of Rhode Island. We're so used to being in our cars.
But it comes down to convenience. How often are the buses running? How long do you have to wait? Where are your bus stops, and how far do you have to walk from your bus stop to get to your location? So there are a lot of things that are involved in this. What's happened here is they just keep moving the location. This bond issue was issued 10 years ago.
Hasn't been that long.
It's been 10 years since, and they still haven't figured it out, you know? So now they're choosing the piece of land that seems to be more convenient because the state owns it, so they don't have to hassle on the price or with the ownership of it. And this is a nice parcel of land, but I'm not sure that this is the best location for a bus hub because there's so many one-way streets that they have to do so much work to recirculate the buses around there. So they really have to listen to the ridership, the people who use it every single day, and they seem to be the ones who are saying this is not the best location.
And they waited for the interest rates to go up 10 years, right? To
Well,
take out
and
the
that's the biggest problem here. Look, the ridership that is most vocal about this, they're going to hate any change no matter what, right? The facts are
So that's baked in.
The facts are that Kennedy Plaza, as it currently stands, is an open-air drug market. It's a tragedy every time you're down there, right? So they needed to move. They needed to build more infrastructure and move that to a place that you're going to have more resources. The original idea was move it further down Doran Street, kind of right across from the court. That made a lot of sense. You'd be connected to the 195 land. You'd still be very close to downtown. I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of strange infrastructure moves that they're going to have to make because of all those one-way streets. And at a time, because of the interest rates and because of how expensive things have gotten, I think you've really squandered a lot of money. It doesn't seem like the right moment to be doing that when you're also cutting these cutting the lines or potentially cutting the lines. I know that's in the question. I thought in the Journal this week, Antonia Farzan had a great story about sort of what it's like to actually ride the bus. And
she tried to take only the bus for a week.
For a week, yeah. And it's really hard.
And she had to cheat a couple of times because the bus, it was going to take her an hour and a half to go 10 minutes.
Yeah, you think the bridge is bad. Try taking RIPTA every day.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the case. On the other, and you're never going to get most Rhode Islanders out of their cars on the bus, no matter what you do. Probably even if you had air-conditioned buses with movies running and whatever, and you fed people breakfast.
Pedicures in the back.
And you fed people breakfast on the bus. But at one point, we were about 50,000 riders a day. We're down to 35,000. You can get back up to 50, 60, 70,000 riders. One is it provides convenient transportation and access to workplaces for people who really need that option. And two, again, in terms of our climate goals, every car that gets taken, and traffic, by the way, every car that gets taken off the road is a big plus. So it'll never be the whole answer, but you do have to really proactively invest in it and change your transportation mix so that it's not so road-centric for want of a better phrase.
I know this is way down the line. Has there been any discussion about what they would do with Kennedy Plaza if the buses got all pulled out?
If you remember, Mayor Lorza, the former mayor, wanted to kind of turn it into like a splash park and have lots of green space for it. He kind of got laughed at.
Is Omar going to be the cutting the ribbon or what?
I think that was the hope. That doesn't seem like Mayor Smiley's kind of agenda here.
Splash park.
I think that they need to do something. You know, the way former Mayor Palino and others have talked about this is try to make it like Bryant Park in New York, right? Is make it a place where you could walk and people will want to be. We're a long way from that, but I think that is the goal. I don't think it's to redevelop that area, you know, in terms of build, you know, commercial property or build housing. No, I think it's to build some sort of park that people want to spend time in.
Okay. It wouldn't be a legislative session if Kathy Gregg from the Journal were not doing a story on cabinet salary raises. This has become a big issue, Lisa, in the last couple of years. What the headline was this year is Governor McKee seeking huge increases again. Well, I guess huge is probably a relative amount. $75,000 more for the health director. Now, some of this is, I understand it's hard to get good people. Yeah. I'm kind of ambivalent about this. I mean, in the overall scheme of $14 billion, is it a lot? At the same time, for the average taxpayer out there, they're wondering, do people deserve 50, 75% raises?
Well, first, though, yesterday, when that came out, the administration knew that they would be making the announcement about the bridge, but they had the cabinet pay raises, and I was going down them, and I saw Peter Alviti getting a raise, and I'm thinking, oh, come on. You know, the timing
we could hold him even, right?
Yeah, you know, but when it comes down to the director of health, I think under the law, the director has to be a medical doctor with an MD degree. So when you're trying to get somebody in that position who can work in a private practice and probably make more money than even, what is it, $250,000, you know, that makes sense to me for that. I believe people work in government for public service, not to make money. And usually you come in, you do a few years, you do your public service, and then you go somewhere else.
And but I also wonder, is it, let's throw the governor under the bus again, is it the position or is it working for Dan McKee? Because he went through a lot of health directors, right? So, I mean, and his reputation, Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, a little riff, maybe go, you know, Jim McDonald, wherever he is in New York. Is it the position or is it the person?
I think it's a bit of both, but you know, look, it's been a really tough couple of years for health directors, right? Obviously, because of the pandemic. But I don't know. Whenever I hear this, I'm sort of like you in this way. You know, when I hear talk radio, Bobby from Silver Lake calling in and saying, "I would do it for $75,000." Well, we don't want you as the health director, guy. Yeah. So I think in some cases these raises are probably pretty justified. I thought it's a bad look to give Peter Alviti a raise. Just it's a bad message to send. Sorry, Peter. It just is what it is. But in some cases, these people probably do deserve it to find the best possible people.
Yes, and when Lisa was working for Governor Almond, if that came up, she would have said, no. It wouldn't have happened, I can tell you that right now.
Link, go easy on the deal.
Yeah, no. Even if we're going to do it, can we wait a few months and do it, you know, in the middle of the summer, like maybe July 4th or something?
Right.
But I would say you get what you pay for to some degree. I agree people do it for public service. You could almost argue on the bridge. Again, sorry, Peter, but on the bridge, you know, maybe if you're paying more for transportation head, I'm not, you know, or any of these other things, you would have better and more effective government. I don't think you want to go crazy, but you do want to be competitive with other states and not lose people to other states or not be able to compete for the top talent.
I think they're probably just going to go through, right? And they had asked for the governor to be able to do it himself on the health director, not have to go through the whole just for 1 year.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Overall, there probably will go through. You know, remember the governor tried this a couple of years ago. Another, to her credit, Kathy Gregg story, and I think he pulled back and sort of held off on things. At some point, these guys are going to get raises. People will be, you know, the people who are mad will continue to be mad, and generally speaking, I think it'll probably go through and it'll be fine.
Okay. The middle of the legislative session means that there are a bunch of gun control bills up at the State House. It was interesting this week that the safe storage bill passed committee. It's going to go to the Senate. It's on a fast track. And Dan, let me stay with you because you follow the legislature here. some of the own senators were kind of surprised. Is this the, okay, we'll pass this, but don't even think about the assault rifle
100%,
ban?
yes. You nailed it.
You can have your snack, but we're not going to give you the meal.
100%. You know, we did, and I think lots of the, you know, different news outlets in this state did, you know, end of year or beginning of the year interviews with the Senate President and the Speaker, and the Senate President's side with Majority Leader Ryan Pierce. And Ryan Pierce said, look, this is my priority. And I remember saying, okay, Senate President, what about the assault rifle ban? And he said, no chance, right? And so
he didn't even try to couch you.
Didn't even pretend.
Look at the committee.
Not even, no appetite whatsoever. And so, yeah, I think this is the trade-off. This is, you know, a bill. By the way, it's a good bill if you're a supporter of, you know, of gun safety and things like that. And so, this is the thing you get done. You're probably not going to see very much more.
But it got fast-tracked.
Yeah.
It did. So I'm deliberately poking at you when I knew that this topic would be coming up. You always think of gun issues with Republicans and Republicans stopping everything from happening. With the supermajority of Democrats in both the House and Senate, the General Assembly, it's amazing to me that even today that these gun laws can't get passed into law.
That's the leadership.
That's your fault.
I'm taking responsibility for that.
It's exactly my fault. You don't realize I'm an arms dealer? So I'd say two things. Yes, there is a traditionally in Rhode Island among Democrats, particularly in the legislature, there's a fairly the National Rifle Association does a great lobbying job there in some of the rural areas. There are a lot of legislatures that have good NRA ratings. I would think, and so you're not wrong. On the other hand, Rhode Island, compared to what it was, they've made a lot of progress over the last few years. You get the probably the most important thing was the high capacity, limiting the high capacity magazines, which is why in terms of these two bills, I'm all for both of them passing, and a cup of coffee will get you a cup of coffee in terms of them passing. But the one that may be more important substantively actually is the safe storage, because you already got the capacity, the magazine capacity ban in place.
Which is held up.
And that deals with some of the assault rifle issue, a lot of the assault rifle issues. So I think it's great they're passing this, and then if you're grading on the curve here, that's market progress compared to where Rhode Island was. If you look at the whole package 5 or 10 years ago, but your political point's well taken.
Thank you.
Rob, you didn't manage to get Peter Alviti into the gun discussion. Well, you're slipping over there a little bit. All right, let's do outrages and or kudos, and then we'll get maybe through one other thing. Lisa, what do you have this week?
So my outrage is not that we have legalized gambling in the state of Rhode Island, because that train left the station a long time ago. What my outrage is, we continue to make it more convenient for people to lose their money. So this month, we became the 7th state in the country to allow online gaming. So right now you can do it on your phone, you can do it from your computer as long as you're in Rhode Island. But they decided to introduce this platform in March, which happens to be Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And then on top of it, Bally's and the state will be making millions of dollars off of this new iGaming, and they put $50,000 aside to help out with problem gambling.
So like the tobacco money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How much of that went to treatment?
That's right.
That is pretty outrageous. Rob, what do you have?
My outrage is the former president. This will shock you. It's a Donald Trump outrage. I mean, Lisa will be shocked as well. Slobbering all over Viktor Orban, the Hungarian authoritarian, feeding him at Mar-a-Lago, calling him the strongest and best leader. If anyone's missing the signals here about Donald Trump, it's kind of hard to. But what's most outrageous is then Orban comes out and says, Donald Trump gets elected, there will be no more aid to Ukraine, the war will end. Yeah, the war will end because Putin will be in Kiev. And then Trump comes out and says, I thought that was a great statement. So we know exactly where Donald Trump is on Ukraine and on caving into Putin. And any chance Putin would come to the negotiating table, which now is probably less than zero, just evaporated completely because Donald Trump's, I think Putin already knew this, has told Putin exactly what's going to occur. He's going to cave to whatever Putin wants to do in Eastern Europe.
I've been moderating this show 7 years. It may be the first time I heard the word slobber. That's a good word. Dan, what do you have?
My colleague Brian Amaral has been reporting this week on something a little close to home to me as a former TV reporter, but just an outrageous move by, I think, all the TV stations in this market to not be paying their employees, their hourly employees, for Sunday work and for some of the holidays, including Victory Day. Channel 12 is doing the right thing, kind of, by going back and paying 3 years of back pay to current employees. They should actually do the right thing and pay all employees who have worked for Channel 12. By the way,
Going back to 1960.
No. I'm saying the last 3 years. By the way, that wouldn't include me. I've been gone for 5 years. Channel 10 should do the same thing. Channel 6 should do the same thing. Rhode Island PBS should do the same thing. It's not asking for anything extra. This is what the average worker in Rhode Island for most jobs would be allowed to be paid. They should continue to do that, and that they should make that change going
It's
forward.
stunning that all three stations, well, maybe conveniently stunning that they kind of overlooked it, but wouldn't you think some labor lawyer would have looked at that at some point?
I know everybody, all these labor lawyers that want us to form unions, get on board here.
Exactly. The last thing I wanted to talk about, the National House, the House of Representatives, passed a legislation pretty overwhelmingly to ban TikTok or to have it divest from Chinese ownership. I think it's probably safe to say none of us are on TikTok. The political ramifications are interesting, though, because President Biden has said he would come out and sign it. You wonder, he's trying to court Gen Z, millennial, and I understand the national security ramifications, and that's a whole half hour we could do, but just from a political standpoint, what's that going to do for him if this does go through?
Yeah, by the way, not that long ago, I'm talking less than a year ago, Secretary Raimondo was saying the same exact thing, that she had a real concern about banning or forcing them to sell TikTok because of what it means for young voters. You've seen Donald Trump kind of take a twist. He was sort of pro-selling, forcing a sell-off. Now he seems to be a little bit more supportive of TikTok staying as is. It's a politically expedient move for him. And so I think you're right. I think it's a real concern. Now, you're right. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know enough about TikTok. I do know, though, that it's incredibly popular among people under the age of, let's say, 25. And I think it could mean something in the election.
But you see ads on television now, and I think this was the push leading up to the legislation. You got guys, not my age, but maybe a little bit younger, saying, this helps my business. I would never be able to do it without TikTok.
Yeah, that's been a good campaign for them to try to do that. But I don't know. I really don't know if this is going to be the issue that really motivates young voters to come out, because...
Or to stay home.
Because, I mean, do you remember MySpace? So there's been different platforms of social media over time, and I think TikTok's the flavor of the month or maybe the flavor of the year, and then they'll move on to something else.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, one is I highly doubt it's going to get through the Senate. So President Biden, depending on your point of view, may have dodged a.
Yeah, why is it? Why won't it get through the Senate?
Oh, you need 60, and TikTok's doing aggressive.
You can't get 60 to say, okay, it's noon today, right? The sun will come up tomorrow.
But I tend to agree with Lisa. I think people will move to other platforms. Also, what this bill does is a divestment bill. So you still will probably have TikTok in some form. And there is a national security reason to do it. It doesn't solve all the problems with social media, which would be 2 or 3 or 4 lively experiments to talk about. So we're not going to do it right now. But there is a concern. Some people may think it's overblown about Chinese capturing our data, et cetera, et cetera. It's probably a semi-sensible thing to do.
Yeah. They say the projected value is $60 billion. So if someone's willing to pay at Elon Musk or something like that.
Well, he's a little cash short right now because of Twitter, right?
Yeah, and I don't think Donald Trump has the money to buy it.
It's probably
right
like a fire sale. And by the way, Trump's flip-flop has a lot to do with a big contribution from a guy who's got 20% interest in TikTok.
Exactly. All right, folks, that is all the time we have. We appreciate you spending time with us this week. Rob and Lisa and Dan, good to see you. Folks, if you don't catch us Friday at 7 or Sunday at noon, we archive all of our shows at ripbs.org/lively. We're all over social media and wherever you get your favorite podcast. We hope you have a great week and come back here next week as a lively experiment continues.
A Lively Experiment is generously underwritten by...
Hi, I'm John Hazen White Jr. For over 30 years, A Lively Experiment has provided insight and analysis of the political issues that face Rhode Islanders. I'm a proud supporter of this great program and Rhode Island PBS.